welcome to an introduction to the book Night. I'm first of all going to talk a bit about the religion of Judaism, and then I'll tell you the life history, what happened to our author, okay? So, first of all, this little section is about what makes a religion, focusing on Judaism. You've got to have a deity, some sort of universal being, which in English translates just fine as God. In Hebrew translates as Jehovah. Okay, Judaism is a monotheistic religion, one God. The leaders, I hope you know what the leaders are. The rabbis. Yay! I love rabbis, a great deal of respect for them. Place of worship, they call it a synagogue, which is a terrific word. Synagogue. Like that. Now, this might be a new word for you, the word canon with just one N. It's not a big gun that shoots things. It refers to something that's been dedicated as a holy or a sacred text. Okay? So the canon for Christianity is the Bible. For Islam, the Quran. For Judaism, they have a lot of sacred books. The big one is the Torah. Okay? And people who are Christian will recognize the Torah as being the first 5 books of the Old Testament, which is interesting. You've got the books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And those 5 books that constitute that first part of the Old Testament make up the Jewish Torah. They have another famous book called the Talmud, which contains a lot of writings and interpretations by ancient rabbis about the Torah. You know, it's like a book of commentary, okay? And while I'm talking about that, the Jewish religion is very, very big into scholarship. That's one of the main principles of its theology, is study, okay? They send their children to Hebrew school. They have them learn Hebrew. So you will find that our main character in the book Night, he's 15 when the events start. He's an Orthodox Jew. He spends his day in Hebrew school, and he studies, and he's very into it, okay? Rituals and rites of passage are an important part of the religion. This is something that religions do just beautifully. Mark birth and death, how to handle marriage, how to handle coming of age, where you do something physical, to mark a life passage, or, when you go to the synagogue and do certain rituals that helps mark your covenants that you make with God, to do something physical to show your devotion to God. You find that in all world religions. The symbol is the Star of David. I hesitate to draw one because I didn't check to make sure which way it actually goes, but I think we're close. And then theology, I just want to point out just a couple of things. One, the founder of Judaism is actually a historical person by the name of Abraham. Those of you who are Christian will recognize Abraham as being the father of Isaac. Father of the 12 tribes of Israel people, and then one of them, I don't know, there's Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, we have all sorts of people like that. So from Abraham, who's a real historical figure, a prophet, he left his home country, had many, many children. You get what's also called the race of the Jewish people. The religion came with it, but one can be of the Jewish race and not necessarily be a believer in Judaism, if that makes sense, okay? There's a belief that they are the chosen people, the covenant people of God. And one of their fundamental beliefs is that a Messiah is going to come in the future to save them. And they believe that he will come someday. Christians believe that Messiah appeared. The Old Testament Messiah came in the form of Jesus Christ. But the Jewish people do not believe in Jesus Christ and believe in Jesus Christ and believe that the Messiah is yet to come. They believe in temples. So along with the synagogue, they believe in holy temples. Unfortunately, their temple in Jerusalem was destroyed centuries ago, and there's this great hope that one day that temple will be rebuilt. In fact, in Jerusalem right now, there's what's called the Wailing Wall, where you will find a piece of the old wall of the temple, and Jewish people will come and pray in front of that wall, okay, asking God for a return of the temple. In our book, you will see our main character, the 15-year-old, praying and weeping over the loss of the temple and asking God for the return of that temple. Now let's go over here for a second. Ooh, moving. I have this nice board of all sorts of things that have Jewish imagery, so let me just point out a few of them. First thing I want you to notice is these men in traditional dress, and what are they doing? They are reading and studying scripture. Again, that being a very, very important part of their religion, to study intently. In fact, I don't know how many of you know the musical Fiddler on the Roof. In Fiddler on the Roof, Tevye is a poor milkman, but what he wants more than anything, if he could be rich and not have to work so hard, he wants to sit in the synagogue and pray 7 hours every day and discuss the holy book with learned men all day long. That's his dream, to be able to participate more fully in his religion. Take a look at this picture. Here you have something interesting. You can see you've got these leather straps that are wrapped around this boy's arm and something on his finger, and there's something on his head. Well, that's interesting. Here's what this is all about. In the Old Testament, there's a scripture that says, God is speaking and he says to his people, "You shall bind my law as a sign upon your arm and wear them as a frontlet between your eyes." Take my law and wear it on your arm and between your eyes. Now, some people may interpret that as just being figurative and metaphorical, but Jewish people take that very seriously. They have these little itty-bitty, teeny tiny pieces of paper with scripture on them, and they literally put them in these little boxes and bind them on their head and bind them on their finger and on their arm. And the amount of times it's wrapped has a symbol to it, which is pretty interesting. These are called phylacteries, okay? And you're going to see our main character be praying, and he gets some bad news, and he's going to have to unwind his phylacteries. Okay, so that's what he's talking about. He has those on, and then needs to take them off. Along with that, you have these what they call prayer shawls, or they're called Teflon. This word, I can't even say it. Anyway, the point is that they have fringes on it, and they bind them into knots, and each knot has a number symbology to it that reminds them of certain scriptures, reminds them of certain prayers. And as they wear them and feel them, it's kind of like a Catholic with their rosary, those little beads reminding them of certain prayers and parts of their religion. And so, an Orthodox Jew will wear that kind of apron-looking shawl with those fringes and be reminded of their covenants. Here is a picture of an official Torah. You can see it's in scroll format, and they actually don't touch it with their hands. Instead, if they want to point out some scripture, they use this little pointer thing called a yod that just has this little metal hand on it. I think that's awesome, so that you don't actually touch the holy book. The other pictures on here are simply ritual items that are part of the Jewish culture pertaining to their holidays. You can see it's quite ceremonial. Some things you recognize, maybe menorah. And here are some items relating to some of their other holidays. I'm not going to take this time to explain them all. Their holidays remind them of historical events that happened, things like Passover. And these are actually foods that they eat at the time at Passover, and it's kind of neat. Passover is actually this week, so it's kind of a neat coincidence that it's happening right now. They have one holiday where they dress up in costumes, kind of like our Halloween, which is fun, and it's a very lighthearted, fun holiday. This is a box for donations where they give donations to the poor. That's an important part of their religion. So some neat things like that. Okay, I think I'm actually going to stop this video and then start his biography in a second one. So let's end this one.